Hey everyone, how's it going? Today I'm chatting with a great bass player out of North Carolina named Hasee Ciaccio. Uh, Hazy's excellent player and is touring with Sister Sadie and Laurie Lewis currently, and does a whole bunch of different stuff as well. We've known each other for a bunch of years, seen each other at IBMA, at festivals, et cetera, et cetera. Um, so yeah, welcome Hazy. And I guess my first question for you is, how did you get started playing the bass? Because a lot of people have different stories. Some people started like playing guitar and someone told
Yeah.
them you need to be a bass player. We don't have a bass player. But I'm curious about your story.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for having me. Tickled to be on here talking with you. Yeah, I grew up down in South Carolina on the coast, in the low country down there, and really didn't hear a ton of traditional music growing up down there. But when I was in high school, some friends of my family started taking me to Merle Fest, which is in Wilkesboro, North Carolina. Um, yeah, the Doc Watson Festival.
Yeah.
And yeah, really saw traditional music for the first time there, and saw this band from Alaska called Barefoot. And the band had three women kind of fronting it, and there were some guys, playing guitar and mandolin and stuff. But it kind of hit me for the first time that I could play the bass if I wanted to. And I'd already kind of, been dabbling on guitar and mandolin, and I played violin in the school orchestra. But when I joined the orchestra, I asked to play the bass, and they told me that I was too small.
Hmm.
Kind of assumed it was because I was a woman. I didn't know any female bass players, but being at Merle Fest, and seeing Barefoot up there, yeah, it hit me that it was still an option.
Yeah. I know.
And so, yeah, so that was when I was in high school. And when I graduated from high school, I went to ETSU, East Tennessee State in Johnson City, to study traditional music. And sure enough, they needed bass players. I kind of went there to play mandolin, but in the evenings, everybody would jam, and I started kind of playing bass that way. So there'd just be a doghouse in the corner and pick it up, and they'd graciously let me thump along till I kind of got the right
Uh,
right notes. And yeah,
you were like
what
mandolin at
was
ETSU.
that?
Oh, sorry, you were studying mandolin on ETSU. Like that's what you auditioned on, or how did it work there?
Yeah, I went there to study mandolin, and by the second semester, I was playing bass in a band. It just was a natural fit. And like I said, I'd always wanted to play it, and was kind of told when I was in the sixth grade, like, no, you can't play it. You're too small. And so I didn't really think about it for however many more years. But yeah, I'm glad to have had folks that, like I said, graciously kind of let me thump along in the background until I could really join the band. And I started touring when I was 19, and nothing will grow you up faster, than jumping in a tour van or
Yeah.
teaching more about an instrument. I really learned on stage, and I still stand by that. You can practice at home as much as you want, but till you get out there and get in front of people, it's not really gonna come to fruition.
So true. So true. Um, and yeah, I guess I have a question about that. Like touring versus being at home. Um, when you are off the road, are you in the shed like practicing bass stuff? Have the metronome on, playing bass lines, or is it more like a fluid thing that has happened more on stage?
I'd say it's a fluid thing that's happened more on stage, but when I'm home, if I want to practice, a lot of it, if I'm when I was in Nashville, I was touring with all kinds of people all the time, learning all different types of music. And
Hmm.
so a lot would happen just, you know, trying to learn songs for gigs. And when you're a Nashville musician, it's like the turnover is like next day, like get home from one tour, leave for the next one. So I was constantly like charting music on airplanes and in tour vans, which just keeps your mind sharp, not having an instrument with you to figure out those relationships. I feel like, yeah, I guess I've heard people talk about how if you can kind of go over music in your head, it's almost like 50% as good as actually practicing. Like if you can envision what you're actually doing. And I think it's true. I'm not saying you shouldn't practice
No,
physically, but
I'm, yeah, I
yeah,
get.
really you know, that definitely is a big component of where, like, I don't know, theory probably falls into play, thinking about positions and stuff. But yeah, I love playing around with a metronome and, you know, kind of coming in and out of different time signatures and kind of treating it like a video game when I'm home. I also you know, giving lessons to folks makes me think about the instrument in a different way too, which, you know, inherently helps me grow more as a musician too. So
Yeah, I know that teaching is like such a great way to explain some stuff, you know, like especially like the really rudimentary stuff that's like so important to know. Like having to break that down verbally can be
right.
challenging, you know, and can give you
Yeah.
appreciation for it. Yeah, teaching is awesome for sure.
And nowadays, you know, if you're trying to learn music for a gig, most of the stuff recorded is to a click. And so it's like if you're at home practicing that stuff, it's like, well, your time is better. Yeah.
Yeah, and bluegrass especially, it's super common for sure.
Right. Yeah.
I guess yeah, and that's the kind of other question I have is like at least for me, like I know you as like part bluegrass picker, but also part old time musician, and I'm curious like your thoughts on the differences between bass playing in both of those styles. I actually think that for all their similarities, I think of the styles as like kind of wildly different in a lot of ways.
Right.
You know, and I'm curious on like how you approach bass playing, but then maybe also just big picture, like what the feeling you get that's different between the two.
Yeah. When I was in college, one of my professors early on, we had this discussion about where you could put your beat, and it really opened up a world of possibility for me because he explained it, you know, by saying that one beat is the size of this room, and you can put your beat right here where you're standing, or you can put it way over there or way over there, you know, like in front of the beat or behind the beat. And the nuance of that is pretty spectacular. And especially within old time and bluegrass, you know, when you listen to real early stuff, Flat and Scruggs or Stanley Brothers, they call it busthead bluegrass for a reason. The banjo and the bass are just on the front end of that beat, you know, as far out as they can possibly be. And it almost sounds like they're rushing, but they're not. They're right in there. And, you know, I think I had that in mind for a while about bluegrass. But then, like playing with Laurie Lewis, she likes her beat like right down the middle.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was out with Molly Tuttle, we both leaned real far forward to kind of push that edge, like I was just talking about, and it was really comfortable. We really sat right together, you know, almost like floating. But when I started playing with Laurie, she explained it just to say that we should feel like we're floating. And it made me think of playing with Molly because I was like, well, we felt like we were floating together, you know, so far ahead of the beat. But after playing several shows with Laurie and finding her pocket, it's this whole other float. Right? It's almost like this laid back, like, I don't know if carriage ride is the right word, but it's very different playing with Laurie and playing with Sister Sadie. Sadie likes their beat pretty far forward too. It's not nearly as far as like when I was playing with Molly, you know, gosh, it's a really fun way to play.
Wow.
But then you've got mashed bluegrass, which is in a totally different pocket.
Yeah, almost like laid back at times.
Right. So yeah, the nuance is what makes it fun to me in thinking about.
When you're playing, like, do you think old time is as varied as like different bluegrass acts is? I mean, it depends on the players, but like
Right.
ahead versus center, depending on who you're playing with in more of an old time world.
Yeah, sorry, I kind of forgot to loop back there. Yeah, I think it's all about who you're playing with. There's definitely, you know, old time musicians that you rage with, and it's one feel, and then you might have like a quiet session, or not quiet, but like a smaller session, Knee to Knee, that's different, you know. Had this really fun session this year at Clifftop with Amy Alvey and Mark Kiliansky and David Bass, and I think Frank Evans was in there too. And it was just, yeah, it was such a big time. And I swear it was like at 180 the whole 3 hours. It was like,
did you guys cut a record on that band too?
What was that?
You guys record when you were up there?
I don't know. No, not this past time. Yeah. I mean,
yeah,
like,
I saw
phone recording or something.
Yeah. There was some recording with that, essentially that band, right?
Yeah, well, Toon Hash, yeah.
Yeah, that's it, yeah.
Yeah, late, I guess like June of 2021, we had all just gotten vaccinated for COVID and immediately got together to record this really fun session. It was, George Jackson, Mark Kiliansky, Amy Alvey, and Frank Evans. They had all been playing tunes together in Nashville and wanted to record, you know, something as a memento of that time period. And, you know, if you listen to that album, there's a lot of nuance within that also in terms of where that beat is. Yeah, some of it's laid back, you know, and really, up for interpretation. There's some interesting stuff on there. And, you know, there's also like a polka and some ragers and barn burners too.
Yeah, definitely. I'm going to drop a link to that record in the comments below this so people can check it out.
Yeah, thank y'all.
Definitely. Yeah. Cool. And yeah, I guess that brings me to the next question about like, so you're on that project. Obviously, you're touring pretty full time, Sister Sadie and Laurie Lewis, trying to work in those schedules together. But when you're off the road, like, what other recording projects have you been involved in recently, and or even just like more local gigs or regional stuff?
Yeah, well, I love playing with singer-songwriters. Doing a bit of that here, living now in Boone, North Carolina, up in the high country. Really just finished recording an album with Alice Gerrard, which was
amazing,
like a treasure and a dream come true.
Yeah,
I recorded that in Floyd, Virginia, over with Joe Bass in his farmhouse. And what an experience. Oh my gosh. Just being with Alice and seeing her approach was just pure magic. And I actually am planning a show with her this weekend. So.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Would you mind like sharing a little bit? I mean, obviously, for anyone who doesn't know, Alice Gerrard's like a real legend of Hazel and Alice fame, and I'm curious, like, if you could elaborate a bit more on her magic or what you felt like was special about that.
You know, before I met Alice years ago, I was probably admittedly a little afraid because she's such a matriarch in this music. And, you know, meeting her and witnessing her warmth and inclusion really blew my mind. Just that she would even want to get to know me, you know, she has so many friends and knows so many people, but yet she was willing to, she's willing to welcome new musicians, young musicians, you know, and take them under her wing. And like, for example, Tatiana Hargreaves has played with her for years. In the studio, it was almost like there was a twinkle in her eye. A lot of the songs, most of the songs were songs that she wrote. Alice is 87 or 88 years old. And most of the songs that we recorded, she had written in the last, few years. So she's still writing, she's still actively playing, she's still singing like a bird. And just to see someone of her age play, but also not just of her age, but with her passion. She has a knack for, capturing the songs in whatever way she wants their message to get across. She's still writing very political songs about things she cares about, which I think is amazing, and she's fearless. I think that's what it boils down to. But she was also receptive to new ideas. We'd talk as a band before we would track something, or if one of us had an idea in the middle of it, we'd say, what do you think about this? And she'd say, oh, I love that. Let's put that in there. Or she'd say, no, I think we'll leave it without that, and just she knows exactly what she wants it to sound like for the delivery to follow through, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and awesome. She was just a joy to be around.
Yeah, I love that, like, the older generation of musicians having, like, the people that really have that welcoming atmosphere. That kind of, to me, that feels like the essence of our music, just like people sharing the tradition and encouraging innovation. Not to sound like IBMA, that's like literally their motto, but I think it's a good motto, because it's like people of that generation who are kind of welcoming us with open arms. When we all, rightly feel a little bit like intimidated around them because of their gravitas, but they're just kind of like down to earth and warm, and that's great to hear that Alice is in that camp.
Yeah, and she's been with this music through so much of it. She's done so much field work, field recordings, and she's taken so many pictures. She's a self-taught photographer, and it's like she was there. She was there.
Yeah, and totally. That's the entire history of bluegrass music.
Right, and and to my knowledge, there hasn't really been a period of time where she pulled back and wasn't singing and playing as much. Sure, she slowed down some, but she's still right in there, and it's truly inspiring.
Yeah, definitely. That's awesome. I'm excited for that record to come out for sure.
Yeah, I think it's Sun to Sun.
Sorry, is that?
I think it's going to be called Sun to Sun. I'm pretty sure.
The Sun. Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Nice. Look out for that. And a couple of the finishing questions. As far as bass players go, like, who are your biggest influences on the instrument, and who do you see at a festival or listen to a record and you're like, yeah, that?
Well, growing up, it took me a while to realize that I was listening to Mark Schatz, but of course I was a huge Nickel Creek fan, like kids interested in this music at that age. Still am. And love Mark's playing. As I've gotten older, I've dabbled more into Todd Phillips stuff. He played with Laurie for years, and so she'll throw a CD at me and say, listen to that. Get in there see what Todd's doing. But Missy Rain's tone too, and I say, love Mark's feel, Mark Schatz's feel, love Bub's feel. Right in there. Yeah. But playing, like I was kind of saying, playing with Laurie, her music is all across the board in terms of genre within genre. She's a songwriter herself, and she writes bluegrass songs, sure, but she also writes songs that are out of the bluegrass genre. And her albums, sorry, let me back up. Yeah, her albums have this wide array of feeling in them, and Todd, even a lot of the stuff that has pare down stuff on, Todd Phillips is right in there. Just his creativity behind note choice, and where he chooses to be on the instrument paired with his tone is just, to me, what makes his playing so incredible.
Yeah, I'm always like huge influenced by like his early stuff on bluegrass album band recordings.
Right.
Classic first couple records. Like, you just never know where he's gonna go with stuff. And like, I remember I did the transcription for this page that was like, "I Believe in You, Darling," that waltz.
Yeah.
Looking at like Roy Huskey's playing from another record versus Todd's, it's like the variety is just like immense,
Right.
Like,
yeah.
Like, they're both amazing, but like couldn't be more different. And Todd just like fills space so intelligently and like creatively,
Yeah.
But yeah, those players are obviously like the best.
Yeah.
All the sweetest too. So.
Yeah.
And last question, I've been asking, I want to ask pretty much everyone this one, but when you're on stage, and that's obviously a very different experience to jamming or rehearsing. Like,
right.
You have to. Sometimes it feels like you're fighting with the sound equipment, and you want to make sure you can hear everyone, but there might be some troubles. But what do you listen to most on stage, or listen for most on stage, as far as who are you tuning into in the band instrument wise? And yeah, just what's your general approach? Because it's hard to get everything in there in a performance setting.
Right. Well, I have to say it's very, very different with Sister Sadie and with Laurie Lewis in the right hands. With Sister Sadie, I mainly put mandolin and banjo in my wedge with a little bit of fiddle. And I stand right behind the our singers and our guitar players, and so I don't need as much of them in my wedge, but I'm really listening for that banjo drive with that mando chop. It kind of locks me in. But with Laurie, this is the, I guess, third iteration of this band that I've been in. When I first started playing with Laurie Lewis, Tom Rosen was still in the band. And Tom's chop is pretty iconic. I don't know if you know much about Laurie's music.
I'm not familiar with him.
But Tom's feel is amazing. And I think I leaned on him, but Tom has had some health stuff he's been dealing with in the last few years, so he's not playing with us as much. So kind of after he pulled back, Patrick said, listen to me, Patrick Sauber, our banjo player. What an amazing guy, what an amazing musician. But yeah, Patrick's feel, man, he sounds just like Earl Scruggs. I don't often say that, but he really is a Scruggs fanatic. And he, talk about floating, he really just can glide and push the song along without it even feeling rushed, And I really relied on Patrick, but in the last year, Patrick hasn't been playing as much with us, and I've been leaning more on Laurie, and it's a totally different thing. And her music, it does breathe in this beautiful way that I really admire. In fact, we track our albums live as well, which is her preference.
Yeah.
And, playing her singer-songwriter stuff, I would say it breathes more than the bluegrass stuff. But even on the bluegrass stuff, we kind of talked about this floating feeling earlier of being right on the beat. I really have to listen up for that. And like I said, it can change with every song, but I'd say now really in Laurie's band, I'm listening to the guitar the most. So it's very different from Sister Sadie.
Yeah. I mean, it's cool. That's kind of cool. I mean, I think of it like every song kind of has a different, it's almost like you have to boil it down to every song being different, as far as where that beat feels, right, or where it doesn't, and who you're listening for. I mean, sometimes in our arrangements, like with Mile 12, that like there's this spot at the end of one song that's like arco bass and fiddle and banjo. So it's like obviously I'm listening to Bibi there, like that's the time, but like other moments it's more mando chop or guitar, like so I feel that there's a really like wide variety you have to listen for.
Yeah.
But Hasee, thanks so much for chatting. It's really been great to pick your brain and hear about what you've been up to.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I have a question for you.
Go.
Yeah, what do you love to do when you're off the road and you're not in the woodshed practicing? What do you what makes your heart happy?
Baseball.
Baseball.
I started playing baseball. There's a musicians baseball league here in the city.
Oh my God.
We're pretty consistent. We meet every Wednesday at 11, and usually we have enough for a full game. So I'm a huge New York Mets fan too. Okay. So yeah, what about you?
Well, I'm probably not as big of a baseball fan, but I do love the Chicago Cubs because my dad's from Chicago. I love to be in the woods. I love to hike, and living here in the high country, there's a whole lot of that going on. I love to kind of go out and look for waterfalls. That's kind of my big thing, chasing water.
Awesome.
Love to cook. Yeah, be in my garden, play with my dog.
Things that like feel so challenging here in New York, like the hike. I love hiking, but it's like it takes like an hour and a half minimum to get to a good hike.
Right. Yeah.
We're like deep in the city here, and no garden. We tried growing tomatoes, and I think like our landlord pulled them off our fire escape. So it's like, it's not allowed or whatever. So we like, yeah. Cooking is awesome. But,
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thanks so much, Hasee, and I'll catch you soon. I'm sure at some festival or something next year.
Yeah. All right. Thanks so much. Take care.
Cool.
Bye.